So good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for coming back together again to talk about families. We wrote an article a little while ago now, and it was because we identified that not only were we getting a lot of inquiries from families, but also that we noticed that the subject of family was one that was coming up in all sessions, whether it was with younger people or in relationship counselling or with individuals. So that's why we wrote that article. So yes, what we thought would be a good idea would be to talk about that a bit more today, but also to extend that a little bit and to think about and yes, to think together about what people can be thinking about, which can be helpful for them right now in terms of family. So yes, to start off with yourself, Mary Beth, because in the article you say that children are talking about families and adults with difficult family dynamics, and the couples are also bringing issues with families. And you also said about there being so many young people back from university. So there's difficult dynamics at the moment that are impossible to ignore. But I suppose just to sort of go back on why it's happening right now, do you think?
Well, I think as the sort of isolation of the lockdown has, come to the fore, really, and our world has become so much smaller, really, and living in our either we're living in the house with our family, or we're living remotely, but it's, relationships have become so important because we can't see people in our social system so much anymore. We've been forced to really shrink back. And I think it's just a focus on really, there's a lot of time to think about things, and also the family dynamics have come into the fore because it's hard for, it's hard for children, it's hard for university students to be sometimes stuck in the house and not, feeling like isolated, I suppose, more than anything. And then it's, and also because we can't have sort of outside, a social context have become limited. We focus on what we have around us, really, in our immediate proximity. And I think, it's caused a lot of, anxiety and stress, and and you can then see what's not working sometimes, you have time to reflect on what's not working. And we're so when we feel like there's a threat or a risk to those feelings of safety and security, really, and it feels uncertain, we look to our relationships to make things sort of okay. And
and you're saying that we've all been thrown together as families in a way that maybe we haven't been before, and the relationships that we're used to having, which help us feel safe and comfortable in life, have actually been cut off from us. So we're thrown together with relationships that maybe haven't always worked so well.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And so it just sort of highlights when communication, especially, and also underneath the what we see on the surface is communication, but the sort of the vulnerable feelings underneath. If we're feeling vulnerable with the situation that we're in the lockdown and COVID and things, they come to the fore, but it's sometimes quite hard to express. And you don't have the usual outlets that you normally have.
Thank you, Mary Beth. And then for you, Monica, you write in the article about it being natural for us to want to be the best we can be in our various roles, family roles. And so people have been talking to us about how to resolve old conflicts and how to develop the kind of relationships they've always wanted. Are there any common factors that underlie the conflicts?
I suppose, there can be lots of different reasons. I mean, often it's sort of childhood patterns or all sorts of patterns that we may be aware of, that had been there before, been there for a long time, whether between parents and children or partners. But of course, these things come to a fore now that we're either stuck closely together with some people, some members of our family, or of course, yeah, or we don't see others, but mainly the ones we're together with 24/7. And like Maribeth said, you know, it's not a natural position to be for teenagers, certainly, or young adults who've had to come home from university. It's not natural just to be with their parents 24/7. So these are difficult patterns. And, you know, we're social beings. We yearn for connection. All human beings, we want connection. We want closeness. And so these can be very distressing, these sort of patterns of conflicts that come up. So it's something people can identify, and it can be helpful to identify it and think about working on, I suppose, possibly either remotely with a therapist right now or after the lockdown finishes, to think about, you know, maybe getting some couple therapy to resolve some issues, or family therapy or individual therapy for young people. But yes, they can be very distressing and difficult because our family are very important to us.
So something about expectations that people hold around their relationships and how those might be put into sharp focus with the reality of those relationships. You said about it not being natural to be thrown together in that way. So yeah, so where relationships haven't always been so good, those patterns of conflict will resurface. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, this is such an unusual situation, the situation of lockdown. You know, it's a crisis. There's so many uncertainties on so many levels. There's so much anxiety around, and lots of our natural activities that we use to maybe relax or de-stress, or our natural support systems outside of the family, are no longer sort of accessible to us. We can't see our best friends or our boyfriends or girlfriends, say for young people, or our friends, our support system. So maybe we can't do some of the activities that we used to do to de-stress, whether it's going to the gym or whatever it might be, going traveling or going to the theatre, entertainment and culture. So it's very difficult, and with the uncertainty. So we're sort of stuck together. It's a time of crisis where I think it's not a natural situation, and it can be very, very difficult. And I think it brings up all sorts of issues for even the best relationships between parents and children, sibling relationships and couples, let alone ones, of course, which aren't that great, where there are long-standing issues, which can be very distressing, as Maribeth was saying.
Great, thank you, Monica. And so, Katie, coming to you now, you'd made the point in the article that many parents have reported actually marked improvements in children's behaviour, and you made the point that as therapists we're not really surprised by that, because we work on strengthening attachments between parents and children. So I'm wondering how these relationships appear of being looked at from outside. What would we be witnessing, do you think, in the improved relationships?
Yes, there are number of families reporting spending more harmonious times actually together, and there, of course, like we talked about, there are equally many families are struggling right now to get along, and in many cases this goes back to the parent-child relationship and the quality of the parent-child relationship. So if this is based on secure attachment, these families usually are generally doing better now, and it's because it's just easier to get along. Of course, the main reason I think why they're getting along now a little bit better is because of the external factors are temporarily removed. And when I think about the external factors, these are like school pressures. I think that comes up number one. Of course, there is homeschooling right now, but the ongoing 7-hour being in school imposes lots of conflict pressures sometimes. also brings up time pressures, getting ready to go to school, getting into the uniform, peer pressures in school, especially if these relationships are toxic, such as bullying, and of course after school pickup, getting to activities. So all those time pressures, going on public transport, getting in time to school. So these external pressures can create a lot of conflict within the family, and right now these are not there.
And so looking in at a family, we'll be seeing a group of people, or well, the families that are finding that the lockdown's been good for them. We'll be seeing maybe a family group where there's more relaxed people within the group, kind of yes, more of a calmness and an enjoyment of each other, maybe.
Yes, so these families tend to report that they actually getting to know their children better now, and also that the children seem happier and more content at the moment. Of course, they're missing their friends and all that what we talked about, but the underlying tone of the family seems to be a little more relaxed and calm, like you said.
Okay, good. Thank you, Katie.